I cried at the end of Red Rescue Team. I was 9 years old, and I was absolutely devastated. A few years later, I also cried at the end of Explorers of Time. These games just did something to me as a kid that I haven't really been able to shake off as an adult. Problem is, I kind of fell off the series as I got older, and recently I started wondering, was the series actually good? Or was I just 9 years old who cried at everything? So I decided to pick up my old 3DS, I launched Mystery Dungeon, and I decided to find out. I just finished the story a couple days ago, and I want to talk about it. Here's the thing about revisiting something you loved as a kid. There's always a risk. The risk that it doesn't hold up. That the magic was just you being young and naive and, easy to please. So I genuinely didn't know which way this was going to go because these games live in my head pretty much rent-free. The moment in Red Rescue Team where your partner breaks down as you're disappearing, that image is still embedded in my head from when I was 9 years old. So going back to a Mystery Dungeon game as a 29-year-old kind of felt like a gamble. And I'll answer the big question at the end, but first, let me talk about the game. So, like every Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game, it starts off with a quiz. This quiz will determine your Pokemon and your partner. I got Squirtle and my partner was Cyndaquil, and I ended up naming him Sin, short for Cyndaquil. Squirtle wakes up and immediately finds out two things. One, he used to be human. Two, he has no idea why he's now a Pokemon. Before he can even process that, he gets jumped by a group of Behemoths. He gets saved by this Nuzlocke who just so happens to be passing by. And at first, Nuzlocke wasn't going to help him, but he's like, well, he's just a kid. So he decides to take Squirtle back to his hometown, Serene Village, and this is where our adventure begins. Now, remember Nuzlocke because he's an important character. The story is split into 22 chapters and then a final battle, and I want to be upfront with you. The first chunk is really slow. I almost quit halfway through. The only chapters that really stood out to me were the Giratina chapter, meeting Ampharos, and then finally getting into Lively Town. And Lively Town is where the Expedition Society is, which is basically your guild, the home base for all of your dungeon exploring, which is the core of the game. But that doesn't happen until chapter 12, which is about 10 hours in. And I've seen people complain about this online and they're not wrong. But here's what I will say having finished the game. The slow start actually makes the ending hit much harder. So I'll say just stick with it. It does get better, but around chapter 16 is when things start to really click. You find out that Pokemons are being turned to stone by this mysterious, powerful force, and it's specifically targeting legendary Pokemons, probably because they're the only ones strong enough to maybe stop it. This thing turns out to be called Dark Matter. And Dark Matter is not a Pokemon. It's a physical manifestation of all the negative emotions of all the Pokemon in the world. And its plan, feed the entire planet to the sun. Now remember Nuzlocke, the guy who took Squirtle in, treated him like family, basically became his father figure. Yeah, well, he's been under Dark Matter's control this entire time. He betrays you. And it genuinely stings and it shocked me because you spent this whole game trusting this character. And this is when the lure really starts to unravel. So you find out that your main character has been turned into a Pokemon essentially to save the world. Because, get this, he's actually from the past. And he already tried to stop Dark Matter once before, but they failed in completely destroying it. Because what happens is Dark Matter will always re-manifest itself because you can never get rid of all the negative emotions from the Pokemons in the world. And the partner that helped him try to destroy Dark Matter in the past, Mew. When they revealed this, I literally said out loud, there's no way. Mew has been one of my favorite Pokemons since I was a kid. And not only is Mew involved, it turns out that your partner is actually the reincarnation of Mew. And those scarves that you and your partner have been wearing throughout the game, Mew, your partner, made them in the past life. Your partner has been carrying them since his adopted father found him. And yes, you also find out that his turtle dad isn't actually his dad at all. So like the ending is just plot twist after plot twist after plot twist, and I was genuinely dumbfounded, but in a good way. So the scarves end up being the things that lets you get close to dark matter without getting turned to stone. You fight it, you win, and the world is saved. And then, in a twist on the usual mystery dungeon formula, it's not your main character who disappears. It's Sin, your partner. He starts to fade away in this whole moment of please don't go, I don't want to go, this thing happens, and it's this big emotional moment. And usually this is when I would start to tear up and I would cry, 9-year-old me at least. I do want to talk about what this game is actually about, because underneath all the plot twists, there are two things that this game really wants you to take away. The first one is that you should never give up, which is, yeah, that's a fine message, but they hammer this really hard. There's a sequence near the end where it's basically just panning from Pokemon to Pokemon and repeating never give up as your main character is trying to fight dark matter, and it just keeps going on for like, I swear, 5 whole minutes. And I was like, okay, I get it. We're not giving up. Let's move on. The second message is a lot more interesting, I think. The whole dark matter concept. The negative emotions manifesting into this evil thing that wants to destroy everything. And it's basically the game saying, don't suppress how you feel. Accept your emotions, even the bad ones, or they will eat up the planet and try to destroy it. Jokes aside, that's actually a pretty powerful thing to add to the game, especially for kids. And honestly, it's not even just for kids. I think adults can learn too, because 29-year-old me is still trying to figure this out. So, yeah. Now the question, did I cry like a baby? No, I did not cry. I know, I'm heartless. But here's what I think is actually going on. When I played Red Rescue Team, I was 9 years old. I had all the time in the world. I was fully immersed in the game, and that game pretty much had my whole soul. Playing Super Mystery Dungeon at 29, fitting sessions in between adult responsibilities, it's just a different experience. The emotional investment builds up differently. That said, I don't think that nostalgia is the only factor that makes these games incredible and special. I think Red Rescue Team and Explorers of Time were genuinely good games, and Super Mystery Dungeon has a great story too, although the pacing is a bit slow. But when you're a kid and a game destroys you emotionally, that tends to stick to you. So it's not that this game failed, it's more like that I've grown up, I've got thicker skin, or I could just be heartless. Okay, so a few things bugged me about the game and I want to talk about them too. The habitats are gone. In Red Rescue Team, when you recruited a Pokemon, they'd go live in this habitat, and it's this little environment themed around their type. Super Mystery Dungeon replaces all of that with this system called connections. Basically, you take on missions from Pokemon. Once you complete those missions, you've been connected to these Pokemons, and that's it. It's a menu, it's a list. There are no habitats, no interactions. There's no going up to Charizard and asking if he wants to go on a rescue mission with you. It's just a UI. It's functional, but it's got like absolutely zero soul to it. And it's honestly my biggest complaint about the game. The XP grind is brutal. I'm 22 hours in and my main characters are sitting at level 27. I get it that they really want you to play the game and not rush it, but I'm an adult and I've got limited time, and yeah, the grind is real. But what makes it more frustrating is that there's this system called motivation, and basically 3 Pokemons get motivated for that day, and when they're motivated, they get 3 times more XP when they're exploring the dungeon and battling. It sounds great, except the 2 main characters don't get this at all. They never get motivated, ever. Only your connected Pokemon do. So the one thing that could ease the grind doesn't even apply to the characters that you care about leveling up. I have no idea why they decided this. The slow start in the beginning could be fixed with this one idea. Instead of all those early chapters in Serene Village, what if they've replaced some of them with a past life scenario? you playing yourself going through dungeons with Mew, just right before the events of the main game. Because later in game, you find dungeons with messages written on the walls. And we now know that Mew was the one that wrote those messages. Imagine actually playing through that, watching Mew write those messages in real time, and then later knowing what it all means. I think that would have been a much better use of those early chapters, and it would have created this incredible full circle moment. But look, complaints aside, I think this game is worth playing, especially if you have a 3DS. It just feels right that way. The story does pay off, the ending earns it, and the message is genuinely good. And even though I basically just told you everything that happens, you should still play the game because living through it is different from hearing it. But anyways, that's all I've got for you. I'll see you in the next one.